I'm Audrey, 34, and until last month, I was the invisible foundation holding my family together. For years, I paid bills, bought groceries, and sacrificed my dreams to keep my father and brother afloat. Then came that Sunday dinner when my dad slammed his fist on the table and shouted, "All you do is take. You've never given this family anything." His words shattered something inside me. So I made a decision that changed everything. Before I tell you what happened after I walked out of that dinner, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. And if you've ever had your sacrifices go unnoticed, hit that subscribe button because this story might give you the courage you never knew you needed. I grew up in a modest two-story colonial in Medford, a middle-class suburb just outside Boston. Until I was 14, life was relatively normal. My father Frank worked as a construction manager, my mother Diana taught third grade at the local elementary school, and my brother Kyle, for years younger than me, was your typical annoying little brother. We weren't wealthy, but we never worried about money. My parents argued sometimes, but what parents don't? Everything changed the summer before my freshman year of high school. The housing market crashed, construction projects dried up, and Dad lost his job. The timing couldn't have been worse. It coincided with my parents' relationship deteriorating beyond repair. The financial stress only accelerated their divorce. I still remember the night Mom told us she was leaving. Kyle was crying, but I just sat there numb. "I've met someone," she explained, not quite meeting our eyes. "Richard has a position in Chicago. We're moving next month." The unspoken question hung in the air. Who would go with her? Kyle immediately said he wanted to stay with Dad. I was torn. Chicago meant a fresh start, but I couldn't bear the thought of leaving my father alone, especially after seeing how the job loss had hollowed him out. When Mom looked at me expectantly, I simply shook my head. Her face fell, but she didn't argue. Within weeks, Mom was gone, moved to Chicago with Richard, her real estate broker boyfriend turned husband. She sent holiday cards and called occasionally, but for all practical purposes, she'd chosen her new life over us. Dad tried to find work, but construction jobs were scarce, and his pride prevented him from taking lesser positions. Our savings dwindled alarmingly fast. I'd watch him at the kitchen table late at night, shoulders hunched, sorting through bills with a calculator and a bottle of whiskey. One night, I came downstairs for water and found him with his head in his hands, silently crying. The past due notices were spread across the table like fallen leaves. That was the moment I decided I needed to step up. The next day, I got my first job at 16, shelving books at the local library after school. Then I added weekend shifts at the grocery store. By senior year, I was working 30 hours a week while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. My guidance counselor worried about burnout, but what choice did I have? "Your grades are slipping," Dad would say whenever I brought home anything less than an A+, seemingly oblivious to the fact that I was keeping our lights on. I never mentioned that my college fund had been quietly drained to pay our property taxes. Despite everything, I managed to secure a full scholarship to Boston University. The acceptance letter came with a note from the admissions committee, specifically mentioning my remarkable resilience in the face of family hardship. I hadn't shared those details in my application, but my English teacher had written about it in her recommendation letter. I was simultaneously grateful and mortified. The scholarship covered tuition and books, but not living expenses. I could have moved into the dorms, escaped the weight of home responsibilities, but Kyle was still in high school, and Dad was barely functioning. So I commuted the 40 minutes each way, worked evenings at an upscale restaurant where the tips were good, and continued to be the responsible one. Dad was proud of me in his way. He'd bragged to his friends about my scholarship, but never acknowledged the exhaustion in my eyes or offered to help with my mounting responsibilities. He'd gotten a job by then, nothing like his former position, just enough to cover some bills, but not enough to stop our slow financial bleed. Kyle watched and learned from Dad's example. By the time he graduated high school, he viewed my support as an entitlement rather than the sacrifice it was. While I worked multiple jobs through college, he dropped out of community college after one semester, claiming it wasn't for him. He bounced between entry-level jobs, never keeping one long enough to advance. Despite everything, I excelled at BU, graduating with honors with a degree in finance. My professors encouraged me to pursue opportunities in New York or even London, but I couldn't leave Boston, couldn't leave my family. Instead, I accepted a position at a boutique financial firm downtown, grateful that the starting salary would ease some of our financial strain. What I didn't expect was how the dynamic would calcify over time. My support wasn't seen as extraordinary, it became the expected baseline. Every raise or bonus I received somehow translated to an improvement in our family circumstances, never just mine. When I mentioned possibly getting my own apartment after 3 years at the firm, Dad looked betrayed. After everything we've been through together? You'd abandon your family now. I stayed, and I continued to give and give and give. Fast forward 10 years. I'd worked my way up to senior financial advisor at Beacon Street Wealth Management, managing portfolios for high net worth individuals across New England. The irony wasn't lost on me. I helped millionaires optimize their wealth while my own financial situation remained precarious due to family obligations. 5 years ago, the breaking point nearly came when Dad called me at work, panic in his voice. The bank called about the mortgage, he said. Something about foreclosure proceedings. I left a client meeting early and drove straight to the house. 3 months of mortgage payments had been missed. Dad had been hiding the notices, hoping for a miracle. The miracle, apparently, was supposed to be me. After several tense conversations with the bank, I made a decision that would alter the course of my life. I bought the house from my father. I used most of my savings for the down payment and took over the mortgage. On paper, it made financial sense. Property in Boston's suburbs was a solid investment. In reality, it meant tying myself even more firmly to my family's needs. I never told Dad or Kyle that I owned the house now. I let them believe I'd worked something out with the bank. Every month, I paid the mortgage on time, a fact neither of them acknowledged because they never knew. Meanwhile, Kyle's financial troubles mounted. He'd finally found steady work as a bartender, but his spending habits were atrocious. Every few months brought a new crisis, car repairs, credit card debt, even gambling losses once. Each time, he'd show up at my apartment, shamefaced but expectant. Just this once, AUD, he'd promise. I'm getting my act together, for real this time. I knew better, but I paid anyway. Family was family. Dad's health began declining 3 years ago. Nothing immediately life-threatening, just the accumulated toll of hard physical work, poor diet, and the stress of financial insecurity. Hypertension, pre-diabetic symptoms, arthritis in his knees and back. The medical bills added another layer to my responsibilities. My personal life withered under these obligations. I'd dated occasionally, but relationships invariably faltered when partners realized the extent of my family commitments. My college friend Stephanie got married and had 2 children during the years I'd been postponing my own dreams. Travel plans were repeatedly canceled when family emergencies arose. The trip to Italy for my 30th birthday became another silent sacrifice on the altar of family duty. Every Sunday, I drove to Medford with groceries for the week, helped clean the house, and prepared meals that could be easily reheated. Dad and Kyle would watch football while I worked in the kitchen, neither offering to help. Sometimes I'd catch Dad looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher, pride mixed with something else. Dependency, perhaps. Or guilt. During these years, I became increasingly invisible despite my constant presence. My opinions, desires, and needs rarely factored into family decisions. I was the reliable backdrop against which their lives played out, essential but unseen, like oxygen. The resentment built slowly, a quiet accumulation rather than a sudden flood. I'd catch myself calculating exactly how much I'd given over the years, then feel ashamed for keeping score. Wasn't family supposed to be about unconditional support? But the support flowed in only one direction, and conditions certainly seemed to apply to my own needs. My therapist Janet, the one expense I refused to give up, gently suggested that I was enabling dependency rather than providing actual help. There's a difference between supporting someone through hard times and becoming their permanent safety net, she said during one session. But they need me, I replied, the same answer I always gave. Do they need you, or do they need what you provide? She asked. The question haunted me for weeks. Then came the promotion opportunity. After years of dedicated work, I was being considered for Director of Client Services, a significant step up in both responsibility and compensation. The position would require additional hours and occasional travel, but it represented everything I'd worked toward professionally. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely excited about my future. I scheduled a special Sunday dinner to share the news, actually leaving work early on Friday to buy ingredients for Dad's favorite pot roast. I even splurged on an expensive bottle of wine. When I missed the previous Sunday's dinner due to a client emergency, Dad had been surprisingly understanding. You've got to take care of business, he'd said when I called to apologize. We'll manage one weekend without you. The rare acknowledgement of my work commitments had felt like a small breakthrough. I should have known better than to get my hopes up. That Sunday started like any other. I arrived at the house around 3, arms laden with grocery bags. Kyle was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone. He barely looked up when I entered. Hey, he mumbled. Dad's out back. I found my father in the backyard, attempting to fix the ancient lawnmower. His knuckles were bloody from where the wrench had slipped. Dad, let me call someone to fix that, I said, setting down my bags. And waste money? I can handle it, he snapped, then softened when he saw my expression. The roast smells good already. I hadn't even started cooking yet, but I let it slide. Small talk followed as I prepared dinner, Dad complaining about the neighbors, Kyle interjecting with stories from the bar. Neither asked about my week or noticed my barely contained excitement. Dinner was ready by 6. I'd set the table with the good dishes, even found old cloth napkins in the back of a drawer. The wine was breathing, the pot roast perfectly tender. I waited until we were all seated before clearing my throat. I have some news, I said, unable to keep the smile from my face. Beacon Street is creating a new director position, and I'm on the shortlist. It would mean a significant promotion. I waited for congratulations, questions, any sign that my achievement registered as important. The silence stretched for 1 beat, then 2. Dad spoke first. More hours, I suppose? Some, I admitted, and occasional travel. But the compensation increase would be substantial. Kyle looked up from his plate. So you'd be around even less? Who's going to take care of things here? I'd still come by, just maybe not every single Sunday, I explained, my enthusiasm deflating. And with the increased salary, I could help more financially. Money isn't everything, Audrey, Dad said, cutting his meat with unnecessary force. Family needs to see each other. Your mother taught you that much before she left, didn't she? The unfairness of invoking Mom stung. This is a huge opportunity for me, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. I've worked really hard for this. And we haven't? Dad's voice rose slightly. You think your brother and I are just sitting around while you're out there conquering the financial world? That's not what I meant. You know what your problem is? He pointed his fork at me. You've always been selfish. Even as a kid. Always about your grades, your achievements, your career. Each word felt like a physical blow. Selfish? Dad, I've been supporting this family since I was 16. Here we go, Kyle muttered. Saint Audrey, the martyr. What exactly have I done that's selfish? I demanded, decades of unacknowledged sacrifice fueling my words. Was it selfish to work through high school to help with bills? To commute to BU instead of living on campus? To buy, I caught myself before revealing I'd purchased the house. To help with the mortgage when the bank was threatening foreclosure? Dad's face darkened. No one asked you to do all that. No one had to ask. You needed help, and I stepped up. And now you want what? A medal? Constant gratitude. Dad's voice grew louder. That's what family does, Audrey. We take care of each other. But you've always acted like you're doing us some great favor, like we're burdens to your magnificent life. That's not true, I whispered, though part of me recognized the kernel of truth in his words. Had I been keeping score all along? All you talk about lately is this job, this promotion, he continued. Meanwhile, my back is getting worse, Kyle's car needs repairs, and you're planning business trips? I can't put my life on hold forever, I said, voice trembling. That's when it happened. Dad slammed his fist on the table, making the dishes jump. His face reddened as he shouted words that would change everything between us. All you do is take. You've never given this family anything. The room fell silent. Kyle stared at his plate. Dad's chest heaved with emotion. In that moment, years of memories flashed through my mind. Midnight study sessions after 8-hour shifts, the business suit I'd bought secondhand for interviews while Dad got a new TV, the vacation days spent in hospital waiting rooms, the relationships that withered because I was always needed at home. I placed my napkin beside my plate and stood quietly. Audrey, sit down, Dad said, his anger already cooling. Don't be dramatic. Without a word, I gathered my purse and keys. No tears, no shouting, no defense of my years of sacrifice. I simply walked out the front door to my car, ignoring Kyle calling my name. As I drove away, something crystallized within me. It wasn't just anger or hurt, it was clarity. For the first time in 18 years, I saw my situation with perfect, unobstructed vision. I had become a resource, not a person. And resources are only valued when they're no longer available. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my apartment, the modest one-bedroom I'd chosen because it allowed me to help with family expenses and maid lists. Financial obligations, personal sacrifices, future goals. Everything I'd been suppressing for years. By morning, I had a plan. First stop, my own financial advisor, Irene. The irony wasn't lost on me, a financial advisor seeking financial advice. But I needed an objective perspective on my situation. I'm considering making some significant changes, I told her, then laid out my financial entanglements with my family. Irene's eyebrows rose higher with each revelation. When I mentioned owning my childhood home while my family lived there unaware, she actually removed her glasses. Audrey, she said carefully, do you realize you've essentially been running a charity for 2 able-bodied adults? Put that way, it sounded absurd. But wasn't that what family did for each other? What would you advise a client in my position? I asked instead of defending myself. Her answer was unequivocal. Disentangle, immediately. Next, I contacted Marcus Livingston, a real estate agent I'd met through work. We met for coffee that afternoon. The market in Medford is hot right now, he confirmed after hearing my situation. Especially for a property that size. You could list immediately. The current occupants don't know I'm the owner, I explained. Marcus frowned. That complicates things. Legally, you need to give them proper notice. I'll handle that part, I assured him. For now, I just need to know my options. By Tuesday afternoon, I'd canceled the automatic mortgage payments and transferred all utilities out of my name. Each action should have brought guilt, but instead, I felt an unfamiliar lightness. That evening, I had my regular session with Janet, my therapist. You seem different today, she observed. I told her everything, the dinner, the accusation, my subsequent actions. This feels like the healthiest decision you've made in years, she said when I finished. But it won't be easy. They'll push back hard when they realize what's happening. I know, I said. Part of me still feels like I'm abandoning them. Are you abandoning them, or are you finally requiring them to stand on their own feet? The question lingered as I left her office. Wednesday brought the first call from Dad. I watched my phone vibrate on my desk, but made no move to answer. The voicemail notification blinked accusingly. Audrey, it's Dad. The water bill came, but it's showing some problem with the account. Call me back. I deleted the message. Thursday, 3 missed calls, 2 from Dad, 1 from Kyle. The electric company says you removed your name from the account. What's going on? Call me. AUD, seriously. Dad's freaking out about these bills. Whatever point you're trying to make, just call us. Delete. Delete. Friday brought the first mortgage notice. 5 missed calls. The bank says the mortgage payment is late. I thought you set up automatic payments? This could affect my credit score. If only he knew the truth. Throughout this time, I threw myself into work with renewed focus. The freedom from constant family obligations was intoxicating. I stayed late at the office without guilt, accepted dinner invitations from colleagues, even scheduled a weekend spa getaway, something I hadn't done in years. I reconnected with friends who'd grown distant due to my perpetual unavailability. My college roommate Stephanie was particularly surprised to hear from me. The Audrey I remember always had to rush home for some family emergency, she said over drinks. What changed? Everything, I wanted to say. Instead, I simply replied, I'm prioritizing differently now. The calls continued mounting, 10 by the end of the first week, 15 by the middle of the second. The voicemails grew increasingly panicked. Audrey, this isn't funny anymore. The mortgage is 2 weeks late now. They're talking about late fees. Whatever I said at dinner, I didn't mean it like that. Just call me back. Are you seriously just going to ghost your own family? After everything we've done for you? That last one, from Kyle, nearly broke my resolve. What exactly had they done for me? The question burned, but I maintained my silence. By the 3rd week, Marcus had prepared the house listing. I signed the paperwork authorizing him to proceed without needing my presence for showings. The listing went live on a Thursday morning. That afternoon, my assistant Amanda knocked timidly on my office door. There's a man in reception insisting on seeing you, she said. He says he's your brother. He seems upset. I'd been expecting this confrontation. Tell him I'm in meetings all afternoon. If he doesn't leave, call security. Amanda's eyes widened, but she nodded. Later, she reported that Kyle had eventually left, but not before shouting that I couldn't hide forever. The missed calls reached 33 by the end of that week. I changed my personal phone number, providing the new one only to work contacts and selected friends. The barrage of attempts to reach me continued through my work line, which Amanda now screened vigilantly. Through Marcus, I learned that the first open house had been eventful. My father and brother had shown up, demanding to know what was happening. The fact that they'd been living in a house I owned for 5 years without contributing had created quite a scene. Despite their interference, interest in the property was strong. Within days, we had multiple offers. Throughout this period, I maintained weekly sessions with Janet, working through the complex emotions of my family detachment. The guilt remained, but it was increasingly overshadowed by a sense of righteous indignation. And beneath that, a growing self-respect I barely recognized. You're grieving, Janet observed during one session. Not just the current relationship, but the one you deserved to have all along. She was right. I was mourning the family that should have supported my dreams as much as I'd supported their needs. The father who should have protected me instead of exploiting my sense of duty. The brother who should have become a partner in family care rather than another dependent. For weeks into my silence, a letter arrived at my office. I recognized Dad's handwriting immediately. For a long moment, I considered throwing it away unopened, but curiosity won out. Audrey, it began. I don't understand what's happening, but I know we need to talk. The bank says the house is in your name, has been for years. Why would you keep that from us? Whatever I said that night, whatever mistakes I've made, we're still family. Please call me Dad. No apology. No acknowledgement of years of sacrifice. Just confusion and the implicit expectation that family would trump all other considerations. I placed the letter in my desk drawer and called Marcus. I'm ready to accept the highest offer, I told him. Let's move forward. From my deliberately distant perspective, I pieced together the unfolding crisis at my former home through second-hand sources. Marcus kept me updated on the property sale. Your father tried to challenge the listing, claimed there must be fraud involved. I explained that you've been the legal owner for 5 years. He seemed genuinely shocked. Amanda reported daily attempts by both Dad and Kyle to reach me. Your brother came by again. Said something about utilities being shut off. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. My neighbor Teresa, the only person from the old neighborhood I'd stayed in contact with, texted, "Not sure what's going on, but there's been a lot of activity at your dad's house." He was asking if anyone knew where you were staying. Each report should have weakened my resolve. Instead, they strengthened it. For the first time, my father and brother were experiencing the consequences of their actions, or rather, their inaction. 3 weeks into my silence, the missed calls on my old phone number had reached 33. I kept the phone, though I never answered it, a digital monument to their sudden awareness of my importance in their lives. The voicemails evolved from angry demands to confused pleas to desperate bargaining. "Audrey, you can't just sell the house out from under us. Where are we supposed to go?" "Dad, day 17. I didn't know you were paying for everything. Dad never told me. Can we please just talk?" "Kyle, day 20. I don't know what kind of daughter does this to her family, but I raised you better than this." "Dad, day 22. Please, AUD, Dad's not doing well. His blood pressure is through the roof. At least call him back." "Kyle, day 25. That last one nearly broke me. Was I risking my father's health with this standoff?" Janet helped me work through that guilt during our session. "Your father's health is his responsibility," she reminded me. "You can care about him without taking responsibility for his well-being." By the 4th week, news of the family drama had reached my workplace. My colleague Dominic stopped by my office after encountering Kyle in the lobby. "Your brother seems pretty desperate to reach you," he said carefully. "Family stuff?" I nodded without elaborating. "Well, if you need anything," he offered. "Thanks," I said. "I'm handling it." The truth was more complicated. On the surface, I was functioning better than I had in years, excelling at work, socializing, even dating again. Beneath that, I cycled through waves of guilt, anger, resolve, and doubt. Had I gone too far? Not far enough? Was there a middle ground I'd failed to find? 29 days after the dinner confrontation, Marcus called with news. "We have a serious offer, 10% above asking. All-cash buyer, flexible closing timeline." They're motivated. The practical side of me recognized it as an excellent offer. The emotional side hesitated. Accepting meant crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. "Can I have 24 hours to consider?" I asked. "Of course, but they want an answer by close of business tomorrow." That evening, I walked through the public garden, trying to clear my head. Spring was just beginning to touch the trees with pale green. Couples strolled hand in hand. Families spread picnics on the grass. Elderly men played chess at stone tables. Normal people living normal lives without the distorted family dynamics I'd been trapped in for so long. My phone rang, my new number, the one only a select few possessed. It was Amanda. "I'm sorry to bother you after hours," she began, "but a letter was delivered for you by courier. The delivery person was quite insistent it reach you today." I signed for it. "What kind of letter?" "Personal, addressed to you. The return address is your father's." My heart stuttered. "Thank you, Amanda. I'll pick it up tomorrow." "Actually." She hesitated. "I have it with me." I was concerned it might be important, given the delivery method. "I could meet you somewhere." 20 minutes later, we met at a coffee shop near the garden. Amanda handed me a thick envelope and discreetly left after refusing my offer to buy her a coffee for her trouble. Alone at a corner table, I stared at the envelope. My name was written in my father's distinctive scrawl, the letters pressed deep into the paper as if he'd been gripping the pen too tightly. Inside was a 10-page handwritten letter. The opening lines told me everything I needed to know about what would follow. Audrey, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I have to try. I've been doing a lot of thinking these past weeks. I've been angry, confused, and yes, afraid. But mostly I've been wrong. So very wrong, for so very long. I folded the letter without reading further and slipped it into my bag. Whatever revelations or apologies it contained, I wasn't ready to absorb them yet. First, I needed to decide about the house offer on its own merits without emotional manipulation. That night, I called Marcus and accepted the offer. Whatever happened next with my family, there would be no going back to the way things were before. That house, with all its memories and obligations, would belong to someone else. The proceeds would provide a clean break financially, if not emotionally. The next morning, I read my father's letter in full. It was raw, rambling at times, but unmistakably sincere. He detailed his gradual awareness of just how much I'd been doing, his shock at learning I'd purchased the house years ago, his shame at taking me for granted. I told myself I was protecting your brother and you by not burdening you with our financial troubles, he wrote. The truth is, I was protecting my pride while you carried everything. I can't undo the past, but I'm begging you to give me a chance to make things right, whatever that looks like. At the end, he included his email address and a new phone number. I'll understand if you don't want to see me yet. But please, just let me know you're all right. After careful consideration, I sent a brief email. I received your letter. I'm not ready to talk yet, but I'm willing to meet next week. Tuesday, 2 p.m. at Cafe Nero on Washington Street. His response came within minutes. I'll be there. Thank you, Audrey. The coffee shop was busy with the afternoon rush when I arrived, deliberately 10 minutes late. I spotted them immediately. Dad and Kyle huddled at a corner table, both looking like they hadn't slept properly in weeks. Dad had lost weight. Kyle's usually carefully styled hair was unkempt. They hadn't seen me yet. For a moment, I considered walking out, avoiding the confrontation entirely. But that would solve nothing. I took a deep breath and approached their table. Audrey. Dad half rose, reaching toward me before seeming to think better of it and sinking back into his chair. Kyle's expression cycled rapidly through relief, anger, and uncertainty. Thank you for coming, Dad said as I sat down opposite them. I said I would. My voice was steadier than I felt. An awkward silence fell. A barista called out drink orders in the background. Finally, Kyle broke the tension. What the hell, AUD? You just disappeared. No calls, no texts, nothing. Do you have any idea what that did to us? Kyle, Dad cautioned, then turned to me. We were worried sick. When we found out about the house being sold. Being sold by me, you mean, I clarified. Since I'm the owner. Dad flinched. Yes, that was quite a shock. Was it? The bank sent all documentation to my address. The deed has been in my name for 5 years. I thought you'd just helped with the paperwork, he admitted. I never realized you'd actually purchased it. Would it have mattered if you had known? Dad had no answer for that. Kyle leaned forward. Look, we get that you're angry about what Dad said at dinner. He was out of line. This isn't about one comment, I interrupted. It's about 18 years of taking me for granted. 18 years of sacrifice with zero recognition. That's not fair, Kyle protested. We appreciate everything you do. Did, I corrected. Everything I did. And no, you didn't appreciate it. You expected it. There's a difference. I opened my bag and removed a folder I'd prepared for this meeting. Inside were documents detailing my financial contributions to the family over the years, mortgage payments, utility bills, car repairs, medical expenses, personal loans never repaid. I'd spent hours compiling it all, spreadsheets broken down by year and category. I placed it on the table and slid it toward them. This is what taking looks like, apparently. Dad opened the folder, Kyle leaning over to see. Their expressions shifted as they flipped through the pages, the color draining from my father's face. This can't be right, Kyle muttered. It's over $700,000. $768,422.17, I specified. Plus the emotional cost, which is incalculable. Dad closed the folder, his hands trembling slightly. I had no idea it was this much. You never asked. You never wanted to know. Why didn't you say something? Kyle demanded. I shouldn't have had to, I replied simply. Dad cleared his throat. Audrey, I can't begin to express how sorry I am. I was so wrapped up in my own problems, my own pride, that I couldn't see what was happening. What I was doing to you. It was the apology I'd wanted for years, yet it felt hollow now, forced by circumstances rather than genuine recognition. The house closing is in 3 weeks, I said, not acknowledging his apology directly. You'll need to find somewhere else to live. We know, Dad said quietly. Kyle's found an apartment we can share. It's small, but the proceeds from the sale will be significant, I continued. I've instructed my lawyer to create 2 accounts. One will pay off Dad's remaining debts. The other will provide a small stipend for 6 months to help with the transition. After that, you're on your own. Kyle stared at me incredulously. You're still helping us? After all this? I'm helping you help yourselves, I corrected. One last time. And then what? Dad asked. We just never see each other again? The pain in his voice was genuine, which made it harder to maintain my resolve. I don't know, I admitted. That depends on a lot of things. Like what? Kyle pressed. Like whether you can respect my boundaries going forward. Like whether this sudden appreciation for what I've done lasts beyond your immediate crisis. Like whether you're actually willing to change or just saying what you think I want to hear. Dad nodded slowly. That's fair. More than fair, considering everything. I've accepted the promotion, I added. I start the new position next month. Congratulations, Dad said, with seemingly genuine pride. You deserve it. Yes, I agreed. I do. Kyle fidgeted with his napkin. So what happens now? We just wait until you decide if we're worth keeping in your life. That's not what I said. But yes, the ball is in my court now. I need time and space to figure out what kind of relationship I want with both of you, if any. Of course, Dad said before Kyle could protest further. However much time you need. But please, don't cut us off completely. Even if it's just an email now and then, to let us know you're okay. I considered his request. Complete severance had been my initial impulse, but was that what I truly wanted? Despite everything, these were still the people I'd grown up with, still my family by blood, if not always by behavior. I'll think about it, I finally said, rising from my chair. For now, focus on your transition. My lawyer will be in touch about the accounts. Dad stood as well. Audrey, I know I have no right to ask anything more of you, but is there any chance you could forgive me someday? The question caught me off guard. Forgiveness hadn't been part of my calculations. I don't know, I answered honestly, but I'm working on it. As I turned to leave, Kyle called after me. AUD? For what it's worth, I'm sorry too. I never realized. I should have seen what was happening. I nodded in acknowledgement, but didn't turn back. Walking away from that coffee shop, I felt neither the vindication I'd expected nor the guilt I'd feared. Instead, I felt something entirely new, the lightness of responsibility rightfully redistributed. For the first time in my adult life, my father and brother's problems were truly their own to solve. And my future, at last, was mine alone to determine. 6 months passed like a deep, cleansing breath. Spring turned to summer, summer to fall, bringing with it the vibrant New England foliage and a sense of renewal I hadn't expected. My promotion to Director of Client Services had exceeded even my ambitious expectations. The increased responsibilities challenged me professionally, while the salary adjustment finally allowed me to prioritize my own financial well-being. I purchased a condo in Back Bay, smaller than the Medford house, but undeniably mine, decorated to my taste without consideration for anyone else's preferences. The house sale had closed without complications. As promised, I'd arranged for Dad's debts to be cleared and provided a 6-month stipend to help them transition. My lawyer handled all communications, allowing me to maintain the emotional distance I needed. For the first 3 months, I had no direct contact with either my father or brother. Through my lawyer, I learned they'd moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Somerville. Dad had found work as an office manager at a construction company, a position with significantly less physical strain than his previous jobs. Kyle had enrolled in a certification program for bartenders and mixologists, showing the first real career ambition I'd seen from him. In the 4th month, I received an email from Dad. Unlike his previous communications, it contained no pleas for reconciliation, no subtle guilt trips. Instead, he simply shared updates about their new life, closed with appreciation for the fresh start I'd facilitated, and expressed hope that I was doing well. He asked for nothing. I waited a week before responding with a brief but cordial update about my new position and condo. It felt strange communicating as adults with healthy boundaries rather than as provider and dependents. By month 5, our exchanges had become regular, if still somewhat formal. Kyle had begun emailing as well, his messages showing a maturity I'd never seen from him before. He'd completed his certification and landed a position at an upscale cocktail bar, where his income, including tips, exceeded any job he'd previously held. "I never understood why you pushed yourself so hard until now," he wrote in one message. "There's something empowering about standing on your own feet. I should have tried it years ago." Throughout this period, I continued weekly sessions with Janet, processing the complex emotions of family estrangement and cautious reconnection. The guilt had largely dissipated, replaced by a growing sense of peace with my decisions. "You've done something extraordinary," Janet observed during one session. "You've broken a dysfunctional pattern that might otherwise have continued indefinitely." "It doesn't always feel extraordinary," I admitted. "Sometimes it just feels lonely." "Loneliness and independence often walk hand in hand, at least initially," she replied. "The question is whether the freedom is worth the solitude." It was, I realized. Despite occasional moments of doubt, the liberty to make decisions solely for myself represented a liberation I'd never known before. In the 6th month, I received an unexpected invitation from Dad, a holiday dinner at their new apartment. My instinct was to decline immediately, but Janet encouraged me to consider it carefully. "You've maintained your boundaries successfully for months now," she pointed out. "Meeting them on neutral ground, as equals rather than as provider and recipients, could be a healthy next step, if you're ready." After considerable thought, I accepted with clear conditions. I would come for dinner only, I would leave when I wished, and the past was not to be rehashed. The evening itself was surreal. Their apartment was modest, but well-kept. Dad had prepared dinner himself. Nothing elaborate, just a simple roast chicken with vegetables, but the effort itself represented a seismic shift from our previous dynamic. Kyle greeted me with an awkward hug. "The place isn't much compared to your condo, but it's home now." "It's nice," I said, meaning it. The space reflected their personalities in a way the old house never had, perhaps because they were finally taking ownership of their lives. Conversation was initially stilted, focused on safe topics like work and Boston's notoriously unpredictable weather. Gradually, though, a new dynamic emerged, one of mutual respect rather than expectation and resentment. After dinner, Dad cleared his throat nervously. "Audrey, Kyle and I have been talking. We'd like to start a new tradition, monthly family dinners. Rotating locations, everyone contributes. But only if you're comfortable with it." The old Audrey would have agreed immediately, prioritizing their wishes over her own comfort. The new Audrey considered the proposal carefully. "I'd like to try that," I said finally. "Maybe every other month at first, and we'll see how it goes." They both nodded, accepting my boundary without protest. Before I left, Dad asked everyone to gather in the small living room. "I have something I need to say." Kyle and I exchanged glances, both wary of where this might lead. Dad took a deep breath. Audrey, I know we agreed not to dwell on the past, and I'll respect that after tonight. But I need to say this once, properly, in front of your brother. He turned to face me fully. What I said that night, that you never gave our family anything, was not just wrong, it was the opposite of the truth. You gave everything, for years, without recognition or gratitude. You held us together when I couldn't. The fact that you're here tonight, willing to try again with us, shows a generosity of spirit I hope to someday deserve. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I held them back. This acknowledgement, so long withheld, meant more than I wanted to admit. Thank you, I said simply. Kyle cleared his throat. I've been a terrible brother, he added. Taking and taking without ever giving back. I can't change that, but I can promise it won't continue. Their words didn't magically heal 18 years of imbalance, but they represented a critical first step. For the first time, my sacrifices had been not just recognized but honored. In the months that followed, we established a new kind of family relationship, one built on mutual respect rather than dependency. Our bi-monthly dinners became a neutral space where we could rebuild connections without the dysfunctional patterns of the past. The only ongoing financial assistance I provided was funding our collective family therapy sessions, an investment in our healing rather than a continuation of the old dynamic. In those sessions, we unpacked decades of unspoken expectations, resentments, and misunderstandings. My father, freed from the burden of pretending self-sufficiency, found a humility and emotional availability I'd never seen in him. Kyle, no longer able to coast on my support, discovered capabilities he hadn't known he possessed. And I learned that setting boundaries didn't mean losing family. It meant creating space for a healthier version of it to potentially emerge. 1 year after that fateful Sunday dinner, we gathered at my condo for our now regular meal. Dad brought the appetizers, Kyle mixed cocktails, and I prepared the main course. As we sat around my dining table, I realized we were engaging in actual conversation, asking about each other's lives, listening to the answers, offering support without taking over. I've been thinking about what happened last year, Dad said as we finished dinner. About how close I came to losing you forever. I tensed. Our unspoken agreement about not dwelling on the past momentarily threatened. I'm not bringing it up to make you uncomfortable, he continued, noticing my reaction. Just to say that sometimes the most painful moments lead to necessary change. I'm grateful every day that you gave us a chance to be better, to be the family you deserved all along. Kyle raised his glass. To second chances. And to boundaries, I added, raising mine as well. Looking at my father and brother across the table, I felt something I hadn't expected to find again, the comfort of family connection, but without the crushing weight of inequity that had distorted it for so long. The journey from that explosive Sunday dinner to this peaceful gathering had been difficult, painful, and ultimately necessary. I'd learned that sometimes walking away is the only path to potentially coming back together on healthier terms. That true family isn't about sacrifice without limit, but about mutual support with respect. And most importantly, that valuing yourself isn't selfish. It's the foundation upon which all genuine relationships must be built. As we finished our dessert, I looked around at this new version of my family, imperfect, still learning, but genuinely trying, and felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for most of my adult life. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't enduring in silence, but speaking your truth and being willing to let go. And sometimes, only by letting go can you create space for something better to potentially take root. Have you ever had to make the painful choice between self-preservation and family loyalty? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to prioritize their own well-being. Remember, setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary for authentic relationships to flourish. Thank you for listening, and I hope my story helps you find the courage to write your own.